One day he found her crying, coiled up on the dirty ground. Her prince finally came to save her, and the rest you can figure out. But it was a trick, and the clock struck 12. Well, make sure to build your home brick by boring brick, or the wolf's gonna blow it down. This is the Community Solutions Podcast. Jason Bradley, Andrew Richter, from deep in the bowels of our underground lair, where we are more dangerous to fascism than all of the mainstream media combined. How you doing?
Well, that's not a high standard, no offense.
Yeah, it's really not. But
I mean, the mainstream media assists in it.
Little show here in this this bunker of ours. It's
this bunker with an open front door. Yeah, hey, well, whatever. Jay,
Yes.
Statement.
Yes.
Just before we even guess on the song or whatever.
Yeah.
Minnesota weather. Can I just bring this up for a second?
Oh,
now,
my goodness.
I'm a lover of this state.
We might not get further than this today.
I just want to hear. I saw somebody on social media trying to blame global warming for the recent snowstorms. And I just, can I just sit here and just say, no matter what happens,
Yes.
climate change is somehow responsible for it.
Right.
And somehow it's us driving to work that has caused a blizzard or caused a hurricane.
Right.
As if Mother Nature is dumber than we are. I mean,
Right.
it's just, again, I'm for being good stewards on the environment. I'm for being fuel efficient. I'm for being smart about how we spend resources. Yeah. I'm all for that. What I'm not for is this silly notion.
Science.
Yeah, this silly notion that, I got to go out and buy a new lawnmower because Obama tells me to or something.
Right.
I mean, it's like, come on.
Look where we're headed.
Give me a break.
I mean,
It does dovetail into what we're going to talk about later. But
right. I don't know how, when you stop to think about it, the average person is going to afford to be able to have to replace their car with an electric car, replace their natural
pie
gas
in the sky. It's pie in
stove
the
with an
sky.
electric stove, electric dryer, electric water heater, electric furnace, electric lawnmower, electric snowblower. How is the average person going to be able to afford to make that transition? But yet they're forcing us off of it.
The average
entirely.
The average home can't even do it.
Right.
You'd have to tear down every house and rebuild it.
And then we don't have the electrical grid to support it. And that electrical grid is becoming weaker by the day.
How about mining copper? You want batteries in this electric stuff? Where do you get that?
Well,
Mining copper. Who opposes mining copper?
Well,
very
the
same people
that want the electric.
So it's pie in the sky stuff. That's why I always laugh at. Well, by the year 2060, we're going to reduce something 20. Yeah, you know what? Half of us will be dead. There'll be no accountability for that. No one will care. They've been making this stuff. You know what? I always say this. I had a great guy. His name was Guy. Guy Stewart. I don't know if he's still alive. He was a super cool dude. He was my 8th grade science teacher.
Okay.
And he did not preach. He did not indoctrinate. I don't want to leave that impression. But he had something I remember called 50 Ways to Save the Earth.
Yeah.
And they were smart, like recycling, recharging your batteries. They were very smart things that, you kind of, okay, well, you think about it, not to waste water while you're shaving. They were simple things. It was not, he didn't start with the premise that we were destroying the earth.
Right.
It was not like that. But I look back at that and I go, we've gone from that. We've gone from that to where we are now, which is almost funny. I mean, it's just kind of,
it is kind
all
of
I
funny.
can do is ignore it. That's the only thing I can do.
I mean, good Lord built an earth that kind of replenishes itself as far as most things go. You think about water, right?
Wait a minute.
Yes.
Think about oil. Oil is made by Mother Nature.
Yes.
It is not made by humans.
Right.
So oil is already there in the earth.
It's a supernatural product. How much more earth-friendly can you get than oil? Because it's already there. But you think about it. If you all of a sudden had a country that went nuts on drinking water, and they're going to drink up all this water supply, what do? you pee it out. And then what happens? It goes through the water system, gets filtered out and cleaned, and it's back in the water system. You know,
that's
your
why
rivers,
Lake Superior hasn't gone down 200
right.
feet.
Water evaporates, goes into the clouds, come back down as rain.
Yeah.
We got water
It's
again.
a constant cycle. But it's acid rain now.
Oh,
the rainforest is gone.
I didn't know
now.
they still had acid rain. I thought that was a thing in the 80s
Rainforest
or
is
90s
gone.
or
No,
something.
it came back like the ozone layer.
Oh, did it?
Yep.
It came back like the ozone layer.
Remember the ozone layer was going to...
Nobody spray your hair.
I'm going to die
Stop.
of skin cancer. Boy, that happened. We got to listen to the same people. The Sant Andreas Fault. I can remember that being a big deal.
Right.
When I was a kid. Oh my God, it's gonna explode, and
California's gonna fall into the ocean,
along with everything else.
We could have been so lucky, but you know, it's
true.
It could happen. I guess, you know.
Well, it is a fault line. I mean,
Yeah.
but you know, Mount St. Helens was quiet for 1,000 years too. I mean, you know, that's.
Right.
So something can happen. Anything could happen.
Right.
I mean, the idea that we all should just cower in our basements because something could happen is silly.
But because global warming is going to destroy the Earth in like 7 years, that's why the Obamas and everybody else have multi-million dollar mansions right on the ocean.
Well, now we're 7 years behind because Al Gore gave a famous speech in 2006 that we had 10 years left.
Right.
And
we're on
17 years ago.
We're on borrowed time, Andrew.
Yeah, I just wonder, anybody bring that up when they talk to Al Gore?
Yeah.
Why are we listening to him when he's wrong?
Right. It's the hockey stick. That's...
Well, you know, I tell you what, there's two classes of people I think the lowest that I could think of a human being right now, and that's a doctor and a scientist. They can both kiss my ass. I hate them both. They're arrogant pricks. There's no more condescending person that you will talk to than a scientist or a doctor.
Yeah.
So I'm visually flipping you people the bird right now. Them along with lawyers have ruined this nation. And those three classes of people can go on an island and stay there, and they can argue and use big words with each other.
Government administrative folk as well.
Yeah, but I mean, but that's where the lobbying comes from and all that stuff. Is
right.
People like that, so...
Because, I mean, you take a look at someone like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She doesn't have enough brain cells to rub together to be able to come up with something like the Green New Deal.
No, but she can be manipulated.
Oh, yes.
She can have campaign, somebody can grease her palm.
Yeah.
Or whatever else they grease with her.
She probably gets a greasy palm just from running her hands through her hair, but...
I wouldn't know, Jay.
Yes.
Hey, by the way...
Yes.
So... Let me get back to the weather here. Only around here could it go from like 38 to 70 or what it's supposed to be on right after Easter. So only here could that happen. Only here could it snow one weekend and be 70 the next.
And then snow again after that.
Is it really?
I don't know. I don't know.
I get a feeling we're not done though. I mean, we have the third highest snowfall ever. Of course, to the global warming people, you know, the world started in 1950. You know, there's there was no heat wave that killed the dinosaurs that was caused by
ice age already.
Internal combustion engine.
Oh, I don't know.
Well,
yeah. Well, I mean that's why the Stegosaurus went extinct, because it wouldn't stop driving its SUV.
Well, I mean. They could have repoed it from him. We didn't make his payments, but I don't know what kind of deal he had with the bank. What else is on your mind, Jay? You got other things? I know you got other things. You got some things to say about some legal stuff going on in the world right now.
You know, are you going to guess the song, or are you going to...
it was the Backstreet Boys.
No.
It was Wham.
No.
Okay, I don't know.
The song was Brick by Boring Brick from the band Paramore.
Okay, I've heard of them. They make movies, right? TV?
That's Paramount, I think.
Well, same difference.
Yeah.
It's hurting my batting average here.
Sorry.
Oh, well.
Sorry, we needed a song about building, and so it was, because we'll talk about that a little later. I kind of got to be in my bonnet about all this stuff going on with Trump. Whether you love President Trump or you hate President Trump, I would like to say this, though. I've been impressed by some of the people that have come out and even though they hate him, they think this whole thing is just a load of goofballery, you know?
Well, there's not many of those people, and I kind of reminds me of the transgender stuff. There's people who know it's wrong who are afraid to speak out.
Yeah. True.
And so until people stop viewing things with red and blue glasses, this is, you know, and again, I don't know how many times in 6 years on these shows, Jay, I have made the call for we need nonpartisan people in critical offices who are not going to, who are going to apply the law, who are going to, you know, not do prosecutions based on color or politics or something like that. And in many places in this country, especially the big blue places where none of them are worried about reelection, you know, it is the opposite that we're getting.
Right.
And I don't see any, I don't know what's going to turn that around.
I don't either. I mean, I was looking today, you know, it's Chicago, Lori Lightfoot, she's out. But one of the two people running to replace her is just as bad or worse.
Yeah, well,
but why would you, if you don't like her, why in the stink would you sit and put somebody else in that's as bad as or as worse on the same things?
I don't know. I don't know
that's
what
stupid.
I don't know what goes on in those cities. Again, I blame Republicans for part of it. They've abandoned big cities, and that's true. I think independents need to run candidates there because I think there are people looking for alternatives to the Democrats who don't want to vote Republican. I think there's a chunk of people like that. I think level-headed Democrats have got to start saying, okay, look, I may agree with you on abortion or on public schools, but I do not agree with you on these whack job things.
Right.
And I don't know where they've gone. I don't know where the Joe Liebermans have gone. I don't know where people like that, the John Bros, the Zell Millers, I don't know where those people have gone. They've either been forced out of the party or they've become Republicans or they've become independents or they've retired or they lost a primary or, you know, something like that has happened because all the money, and you'd think the Democratic money people would start scratching their head like at some point this is going to backfire.
Right.
You know, it has to a degree in some places.
Not near as much as it should have.
Yeah, and I think again, the Democrats are very good at getting their people to vote, and Republicans are terrible at it. Independents are not; they're more concerned about being right than they are about winning an election. So I don't know when you're going to until those things change. I don't know that results are going to change, but I think you know. You talk about prosecutions like this. I mean, the feds declined to prosecute this against President. Again, whatever you think of the former president, whatever. The feds have stronger sentencing guidelines. They have more resources to go after somebody. They can make your life a living hell with every agency. And they've all been up Trump's ass since 2015 anyway. And if they found something on him, I mean, you know, they're just searching for a reason. So again, you know, people and everybody should be concerned about this. I mean, you should be concerned that you piss the wrong person off and they can weaponize something against you. That is a big deal. And so I think this is partly because he's running again. I think that they want to distract him from this. I think it's partly that if he has this hanging over his head, they're not going to get a conviction here with any honest jury.
No,
so,
but can you get an honest jury anymore? I don't know.
But again, even if Trump were to go to trial and get convicted, he would have grounds for appeal based on jury selection.
And he could tie it up, but how much of that time is he going to be off the campaign trail? How much of that time? They're going to set these things up, and they already are starting to set them up so that they coincide with certain events within the...
and he can't take a plea deal, so, I mean, without admitting... The only evidence really against him is this Michael Cohen guy.
Right.
It's pretty much his word, and
But, I mean, you look back, you know, look at Nixon. He didn't have to, you know... He was pardoned by Ford, so he didn't have to get prosecuted.
I think he would have been indicted eventually.
He would have, I think, but, you know.
Although Watergate seems pretty insignificant in the real world, though, don't it? I mean,
with all of the things that we're facing now, that
can't believe that brought a president down in retrospect.
Yeah. It was big at the time, but...
Well, again, President Nixon did not have a media outlet to get his message out. He did
Right.
not have. He faced a very hostile Congress, end of a hostile war.
Yeah.
There was a gas shortage and an economic downturn at the time. It was kind of a perfect storm around him. He handled the situation poorly. No one can defend that.
Yeah.
But the idea that breaking into a hotel and finding out about it afterward and trying to protect your own administration, that's a high crime and misdemeanor. In retrospect, that seems, I almost laugh at it.
Right.
I mean, compared to, and I'm not using bad behavior to justify bad behavior.
Right.
I know I get tagged with that sometimes, but
but I mean, it is historic. I mean, you look at Harding, ended up passing away.
yeah. Well, I mean, again, President Harding's another guy, though. Was he guilty of those things himself? Or was he guilty of putting his friends and his buddies and looking the other way? I think he was more guilty of that.
Yeah.
I personally think he's an underrated president. I
mean, the 20s, the roaring 20s, really, it started with his administration, and Calvin Coolidge was masterful in the way he carried the rest of that out. But
here's what's great.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about Wilson and Teddy Roosevelt. The three best presidents of that era were Taft, Harding, and Coolidge.
Absolutely.
It's just
Absolutely.
joke. Woodrow Wilson was awful.
Oh, he rivals Joe Biden as the worst president ever. I don't know which it is
But
yet.
put James
but
Buchanan and Franklin Pierce up there too.
They weren't very good either. But at least, we didn't end up with a federal income tax.
Yeah, we're not still paying the price for electing them.
And, yeah, exactly. But we may pay the price for Joe Biden forever. So
it's hard today because government is hard to unravel.
Right.
And I don't know, but I mean, as far as Trump goes, I've said it before. I don't think he'll win the endorsement. That's just me.
Yeah.
I think it's DeSantis's to lose.
We'll see. I don't know.
Well,
this is only helping him right now.
true, but the only thing I can think of is this is the gauge I get from talking to Republicans, some of which don't like to talk to me anymore.
Yeah.
But the gauge I get from them is they all like President Trump. They all think he was a good president. They all voted for him, but they don't want the circus that surrounds him. They think he was a good president. They agree with his policies, but they want a different person to run. If I get the vibe, that's the vibe I'm getting. Now, that doesn't mean when they go into a booth when nobody's looking, I don't know what they'll do.
Let me address that, though, for a second. You've got somebody with a proven track record that proves he'll buck the system, that proved that he will do things that nobody else has been willing to do.
Proves that he can win. Everybody said he couldn't win.
Right.
And you were totally wrong.
But here's the thing. He's angry. And this has made him only more angry. This is like throwing rocks at a hornet's nest. Is what this is. And if he goes in there, he will tear everything down. And that's what we need. We need somebody to go in there, destroy the Department of Education, go in there and clean house with what's going on in the FBI and the CIA, get rid of all the extra people at the IRS that Joe Biden hired. All of this, is something that he will do. I mean, you don't have any unknowns when it comes to President Trump in that regard.
I think that's true. I think if another Republican rival of his were smart, they would join in on that and say, look, I don't come with the baggage.
Right.
Just an idea. I still think it's DeSantis to lose. He's the rising star. He can't run for governor again. He has nothing to lose by running.
I think it would be good if he were the number 2 for 4 years and just learned from Donald Trump, because here's the problem. It took Donald Trump 4 years to figure Washington out, and it wasn't enough time. Had he had another 4 years, he would have deconstructed all this stuff. But because he didn't have the extra 4 years, he only got to learn what the problems were. Now,
just think it takes 4 years to learn Washington's problem. That says a lot about where we are as a country.
Yeah, it's that screwed up, and it goes that deep, where you've got layers upon layers upon layers of bureaucrats.
And he had to fight other Republicans. I mean, let's remember something. I mean, when it came to something like the border, I mean, it wasn't a left versus right thing. It
No.
was the elite Republicans are with the elite Democrats.
Absolutely, they
Yeah,
are.
and so
I mean, Mitch McConnell got his wife a sweetheart deal with China, and that they're making
George
boatloads
Bush, John
off of
McCain,
that.
Mitt Romney, they're all part of
Mitt
that
Romney.
cabal.
Don't even talk to me about Mitt Romney.
I will admit, I cast
Murkowski.
my
Yeah.
vote for Mitt Romney in 2012.
I did not. I did not.
Would you write in?
I didn't write anybody in. I went
Gary
Constitution
Johnson?
Party.
Oh, okay.
I think. Oh wait, no, maybe I did do Gary Johnson that year. I did Chuck Baldwin. Would that have been 2008?
That was 08.
And then it might have
Darrell
been.
Castle was.
It was
the
either Derek.
constitutional candidate.
It was It was either Darrell Castle and.
Yeah, I respect Gary Johnson. I disagree with him on some issues, and I think he's another guy that likes to be right and doesn't care whether you can be right when you win. That's always my whole thing. But you think about it. You think about 2016. You get something like 5 million votes. I mean, that's one hell of an accomplishment for a guy who walked around handing flyers out. I mean, it just goes to show you that there's an appetite, I think, for alternative candidates. And President Trump, I think, counted as one of those too. And so it's hard to.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I mean, I think this ends stupidly, and I think both sides will try to claim a win somehow. And I don't really get it. I just don't understand it. That's just me. I think it's just the obsession with the former president is just mind-boggling to me. And look, I've seen this before with other people, and it just destroys whoever gets.
It's true. I mean, look at what it's done to our country. They have turned really the whole country into a circus because it's not just the former president's ability to rile people up, but the people really hate him, and they are willing to go to any lengths possible getting in the country.
Well, and what amazes me is how do you have so much hatred toward a fellow citizen? I mean, there were those who liked Hugo Chavez more than George Bush.
Yeah.
There were those on the right who liked other people more than Barack Obama. I didn't vote for President Obama. I didn't want to spend all my time trying to put him in jail. I wanted to defeat him in an election.
Right.
And I don't know what's happened to the psyche of people that. And again, I think the two-party system, the winner-take-all, I have the majority by one vote, and I'm going to ramrod anything down your throat, whether you want it or not. Yeah. Everybody greasing your palm. I just think that's, it's not enough to just break down the system. The two-party system has to be broken down somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. But yet they are putting every radical thing through that.
And let me tell you something. The number one person to blame for this is Tim Walz, because Tim Walz should say to himself, 1.2 million Minnesotans voted against me. Okay, I won, but there's a lot of people who don't support me here, and I have an obligation to govern for everybody.
Right.
Not just the people who voted for me.
Now, if you won 60-30, you have a little more leniency to be able to do some of that stuff.
You do, but you have to be conscious that, that there is a nation of people here. There is a state of people who, there are entire areas where Tim Walz, there are counties where 50 people voted for him.
Yes.
And if you want to be, you can't call yourself the governor of a state and only listen to who you want to. And this is part of the problem with not debating, not campaigning, not subjecting, not listening to anybody you disagree with. And we have a governor in this country, or in this state, who has vetoed nothing in 4.5 years. Now, why do we even have a governor then? If you're just going to sign everything that comes in front of your face, then you might as well go home. We don't need you.
Right.
Just resign. I mean,
leave a stamper on the desk and go to your.
What's the point?
What did you see? He's like renting some It's like
he's renting it on our dollar. I'm sure.
Yes, he is, because it's the new governor's mansion out in Sunfish Lake or whatever for a while, and it's like $17,000 a month.
Well, that's a pretty high rent.
Yes. Yes, it is.
He's got his own jogging or whatever. I don't know. I mean, but the whole concept of being governor is checks and balances. That includes your own party. Mm-hmm. I mean, you talk about razor thin majorities, and it looks like it's, 3-1, and it's not. And again, he has an obligation to listen. He has an obligation to take other things into consideration. He's an obligation to do what's best for the state and not just what's best for him or for his money men or whatever. But again, that's the system we've got. That's the system we breed. It's 50+1, and you can jam whatever you want down your throat. I'll tell you what else we need to have. We need to have cloture rules, and we need to have things like they have in the United States Senate. There needs to be filibuster rules. There needs to be, you got to protect 33 people may as well not show up in the Minnesota Senate. 33 out of 67.
Yeah.
It says we have 67 senators, not 34.
Right.
So elections have consequences. That's the only thing I can say.
Unfortunately, half of us have to live under those consequences when we didn't support them in the first place.
I didn't support anybody. I wrote in Daffy Duck, and I wrote in, whoever, whatever else. I can't say I'm on the air when I put in a few of them. But I just want to see the look on the person's face when they read them out loud or something. That's what I wish I could see.
Yeah. You should have been an election judge or whatever.
I will not do that job again without photo ID. I will not do that job.
Yeah.
Because...
Well, everybody's got a photo ID now. See, your wish is granted. They just signed that in, driver's license for all. So
my favorite part is the Democratic National Convention requiring a photo ID to get in.
Well, now
that was my favorite part.
Now
but
that everybody's
that
got one. Yeah.
But I guess it's, again, it's different rules. If I got private security, but I'll take away the police. It's just, again, one rule for the elites, one rule for the rest of us.
Yeah. Well, that's...
Have we sidetracked enough?
Yeah. Why not? It's fun to complain once in a while.
I don't complain. I educate.
That's true. It's true. We bring a valuable perspective, I believe, on the important issues of the day. Because they do have an effect here at home. I mean, whether we realize it or not. So it's even with President Trump's indictment and stuff today, we see these things trickle down into our state and trickle down into the way that we do local politics. I mean, because when you have people like Alvin Bragg or Mary Moriarty, that their ilk that keep turning criminals out into the street, I mean, this is what you get.
Well, now up at Stearns County, if I can just sidetrack into what we're kind of getting on, which is the cost of government buildings, and the additional cost we keep adding on, because of our sustainable. I hate that word. God, I hate that word.
I know. I know.
When I was growing up, Jay, I thought the S word was something else, but I think I'd rather hear that word. I'd rather hear an 8-year-old yell the S than yell sustainable. I'd rather hear that. When I hear sustainable, I'm telling you, it
does make me cringe.
I get just all ugh. Yeah. It's fingernails on a chalkboard. It's I can't listen to it. Listen up here in Stearns County. This is hilarious.
Okay.
Well, not if you're a taxpayer there. It's not very funny. But from the Star Tribune, over a decade ago, Stearns County officials knew the jail was cramped and nearing the end of its useful life. Now, that's government speak.
Right.
The building really doesn't need to be replaced. We just, this is how government works. They buy a chair, and after 5 years, they just replace it. Whether the chair needs to be replaced or not, they do everything on this little timetable. Mm-hmm. It's hilarious. I mean, it just shows you how much money they have. They have so much money, they don't know what to do with it, so they just replace a couch, even if it's a perfectly good couch.
Right.
They replace a door. They replace anything you can think of. A toilet paper dispenser, just because it's at the end of its useful life. People are still using it, but it's at the end of a useful life. The hefty replacement costs and estimates and indecision over the location spurred commissioners to spend $5 million on a temporary fix, which bought county leaders time to plan for a longer-term solution. Now this is the Stearns County, the cost of a new jail. Now listen to this, James.
Okay.
As the inmate population continues to swell above capacity, we'll get to that in a sec, and maintenance crews struggle to replace parts of the aging building, commissioners agree it's time to build a new jail.
Huh.
Of course it is. Now, I want to say something, too. This building is not that old. I can't remember where it says how old it is. But it's not like this building was built in, not like this is Alcatraz here.
Right.
Okay? My old house in Crystal was built in 1952.
Mm-hmm.
If it were a government building, by now it would have been torn down and rebuilt 3 times.
True.
I mean, it is.
And bigger and better each time, too.
Course, because you have to make it.
Yeah.
The last couple of years, this is Joe Persky, the chair of the Stearns County Board. The last couple of years, we knew we'd be moving forward with plans for a jail. It had a price tag of under $100 million. Now we're looking at the potential project for something well over $300 million.
Goodness.
That creates a certain amount of sticker shock. Now I want to say something too.
Yeah.
This jail has a capacity of 160 inmates.
Yeah.
A $300 million building for 160 inmates.
That's crazy. I mean, you do the math on that.
Okay, but here's the math. The county, according to them, will need 270 inmates. We'll house that by 2040.
Why? Is Stearns County a growing county?
I don't know. Is St. Cloud in a growing area? I don't know.
You're anticipating needing more cells? I mean, is there going to be more?
I thought we were letting out criminals. I thought we were letting them out. We're legalizing pot and all that stuff. Here's my question, too. Jail is jail.
Right.
Why does it matter where you are?
Yeah.
Isn't there any other jail you could send them to? I mean, isn't jail?
Sure.
I mean, if Aiken County's not overflowing, can you send a few Al Capones their way? I just $300 million. Now, here's the other thing that is just blowing my mind. Guess how they plan on paying for this?
How?
You just take a guess.
They're going to do a local option sales tax.
Local option sales tax.
I didn't even read it.
County leaders.
How long have we been doing this? Look at that.
I don't.
So we just know.
It's
we
so
just know
bad.
the answer.
And I love how the Star Tribune puts this.
Yeah.
They make it sound like it's nothing, like it should be higher.
Right.
County leaders propose paying for a new complex with a new 3/8 of a cent sales tax, which of course is a regressive tax on poor people.
Right. Well, why not? They might as well pay for the jail they're going to stay in, right?
Yeah. Benefits received principle. This session, the county is asking the legislature, and I'm sure they'll get it, whoever asks gets it,
right,
for permission to bring a referendum to the voters to allow a county to collect up to $325 million. And once that's collected, of course, the tax is going to go away, right?
Of course not.
If voters approve the sales tax rate for St. Cloud residents who live in Stearns County, actually for anybody who buys anything in Stearns County, it has nothing to do with whether you're a resident or not, you imbeciles, would be increased to 8%. That would be higher than the current sales tax. People who live in Benton and Sherburne County. But, it's still less than Rochester and Duluth. So they should feel good.
Oh, yeah.
That's a cut, right? That's a cut.
Right.
That's an old DFL cut right there.
Yeah.
Persky said he's not comfortable taking $300 million plus from the voters right now because he doesn't think it would pass. No, really?
Yeah.
Actually, it probably will. Instead, he'd like commissioners to discuss the building the Justice Center in stages with the jails first. We're going to have to go to the voters if we go with a sales tax. We've got something they think, who cares what he says? Seriously. This is just beyond ridiculous. $300 million to host 270 inmates. So what is the math on that? I don't know if my calculator goes up that high.
Do we even know, is that jail at or above capacity?
It is.
It is.
It is, the current one. That's $1.1 million per prisoner. You can't house them for $950.
Right.
$968.
I'll tell you, I think we could house them a lot cheaper.
I think we could house them for $37.50 myself.
Yeah, exactly. We'll leave the light on for you.
Exactly. Golly. $300 million, you could buy a whole neighborhood for that.
Right.
God. They've been pissing and moaning about where it's going to be and blah, blah, blah. By the way, they're talking about annexation, by the way, for a new facility. Yes. Let me see if I can find this. Because there's a big complaint about building it downtown or by where the current one is.
Yeah.
Committee that studied the county's needs is recommending 5 options for a new Justice Center complex. 2 of them keep the campus downtown.
It's a jail. It's not a dormitory.
Yeah. But it would require businesses. It would require the county to acquire some businesses, which could make that more expensive, make it harder, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
To move it out of town would require a whole boatload of other things, annexation being one of them. Way out by 94, there's an Electrolux appliance manufacturing site that would have to go. You're looking at millions of dollars just to get new land.
Right.
So, I mean, look, jail's jail, folks.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, Stearns. Can't you do better than this? You stink.
Get a standard metal frame with a mattress and a metal toilet.
Need 1,000 TV channels. I mean, what do they need? How many cameras do you need?
I don't know.
And you know what? With 270 inmates, how many guards does that require? What's the ratio?
I don't know.
I know it's 24/7 work.
Right.
But I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to get overwhelmed by a jail riot.
No, I wouldn't either.
I wouldn't want that for anybody.
No, and that can't happen. That just can't happen. But, I mean, 300 million, just incredible with these buildings. Just the lack of giving a damn about the people who pay for this stuff.
Right.
It's just, I wish I could say I'm blown away by it, but I never am.
If that's what it costs for basic building, no bells, no whistles, no fancy prisoner perks, then that's a different discussion. But I don't believe that.
I don't either. I think it's a Cadillac plan. It has to be.
Yeah,
no doubt about it. Now you think that's bad? You think that's bad when it comes to buildings? Now, first of all, let me just say this: government is making this worse. They're making this more expensive. They're making this harder to do.
Yeah,
but we're going to get to that in a sec. The new Vikings Stadium.
Yes. You mean the one that I think we're still paying for that just got built?
Yes. And we're going to be paying a whole lot more. A whole lot more over the next 10 years.
Yeah.
The stadium needs $280 million in maintenance over the next 10 years, including $48 million this year alone. Now, you stop and think about that, Jim. Think about a brand new house, okay?
Yeah.
How much in maintenance does that need in 5 to 10 years? Minimal,
yeah. You might have to put some putty on a wall or one of your kids runs into it and punches a hole in it, or
But I mean, after 3 years, the heater doesn't go out.
No.
Okay, the roof doesn't collapse.
No.
Okay, you might have a broken window. You might have something like that. But typically, a home does not have that happen.
Right.
Why this is happening? I am just so. This is from CBSSports.com, the home of the Queens. Oh, I'm sorry, the Kings, the Vikings. The Palace, called U.S. Bank Stadium, will need $280 million in repairs and upgrades. Why do they need upgrades to a brand new stadium?
They shouldn't. They should have thought ahead with all the latest and greatest. And then you just kind of...
Why do they need all the latest and greatest?
Do without.
You play football.
After you build it.
You play football.
Right.
You need grass, a ball, and goalposts.
I don't even think they have grass.
Whatever you call it, the fake.
Isn't
it's the field turf,
or do they have grass?
I think it's field turf, but that's fake grass. But that includes $48 million just next year. The Vikings And Minnesota taxpayers make, and I didn't know this, make yearly deposits in the stadium's capital improvement fund, which has $16 million in the account currently. The stadium's audio-visual room, one of the key areas for U.S. Bank's production value for events, is projected to require $14 million in funding alone.
Oh, goodness.
For audio-visual?
I can't even.
How many TVs do you need in there? How many microphones do you need?
I suppose. They got the big jumbotrons and stuff.
Sure.
Maybe they bought an off-brand jumbotron and it's like a Vizio or
Jerry Jones hasn't replaced his big jumbotron in 15 years down there.
Why do Sony? We need to? I don't know. Should have went with a Zenith. Do they make those anymore?
It's up there with Emerson.
Yeah.
Kansas City-based Papulios, an architectural firm specializing in stadiums and arenas, boy, I'd like that job, conducted a facility assessment on behalf of the Minnesota Sports Facilities Authority, which oversees the 7-year-old building on behalf of Minnesota taxpayers.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, right. That's their big concern.
And who elects them?
I don't know who
keeps them accountable.
Who's on it?
Yeah.
Each area of the stadium was labeled good, fair, ugly, whatever. No, good, fair, worn in the architectural assessment.
Then you skipped over. They paid over $500,000 just for the assessment.
Right. Yep,
$527,500 just for the assessment on this.
Yeah,
a scam.
Areas labeled as worn down include weather stripping on the doors, a damaged concession sign on the stadium's upper levels, and the in-house stadium TV distribution system, which is nearing the end of its life.
After 7 years?
Oh.
Will they forget to turn it off at night?
Now your pet hamster will live longer.
Didn't go into sleep mode, or
never fear, never fear. Governor Dumbo is here. The Minnesota proposed state budget from Governor Goofy. There is a section that allotted $15.7 million to cover the first phase of the perimeter around the building. Now, Mr. Walls, can I ask you a question? How many starving children would that feed? How many teachers could that hire? How many homeless people could you put up? How many black students could get a scholarship with that money? Oh, but no, we're going to give it to the Vikings.
Hey, that is probably our surplus money.
Oh.
But don't worry. At least the weather stripping will be up to date.
No kidding. The Sports Facilities Commission Chair, Michael Vekich.
Isn't he a Republican?
I have no idea.
Let me look him up quick.
Okay,
because if he is, he's in a crap list.
Well, he's just taking an appointment and getting paid for it, which is what government people do. He expects the group responsible for monitoring the stadium's maintenance to ask for the state legislature for $48 million in 2024. In other words, we're going to foot the whole bill. The legislature is also discussing the governor's proposal to finish paying the outstanding $377 million in bond debt on the Vikings.
Yeah, I've seen this guy before. Kind of looks like Gollum.
The fund is supplemented with revenue from the taxes on electronic pull tabs to help curb the stadium debt, which of course didn't come close to doing. The $1.1 billion venue opened in 2016 and was the largest public-private project in Minnesota's history. The city of Minneapolis footed $150 million. State taxpayers paid $348 million. And the Wolves or Wilfs or whoever owns the team, paid the remaining balance. So taxpayers have already put, I can't add here, $498 million. Asked the legislature for the state to chip in all $48 million of this upkeep.
Well, of course they are. Year. Of course they are.
$48 million. Come on, how many hungry children could have food?
Well, they don't care. This is from back in 2019. U.S. Bank Stadium Authority chairman staff get pay boosts. The Minnesota Sports Facilities Authority Board approved a 60% pay hike for chairman Michael Vekich.
I went from $3 to $5,
bringing his total to $95,000 after also giving raises for other executives at the stadium
inflation, he can't get by on that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not even six figures. Everybody who government administration makes that. He's underpaid.
You do know that's not his full-time job.
Oh, okay. Well, what is his full-time job? A lobbyist?
Well, he's part of the Minnesota Sports Facilities Authority. He's also...
he's got to be with the elites on something.
Oh, he is. He's a CPA. Let's see. He's the chief executive officer of Vekich Chartered Management Advisors, specializing in strategic planning.
God, that just sounds like garbage.
Yeah.
Just garbage.
He was appointed in 2016 by the governor of Minnesota to serve as acting director of the Minnesota State Lottery. Chair of the board of trustees of Minnesota State Colleges and Universities. See, he's got a lot of things he does.
So it's like he's a city administrator. He's just jumped from, or he's a Catholic priest.
He's a board.
He's just jumped from place to place.
He's a board member of a number of banking companies, including HF Financial Corp, of which he's the chair, and Tradition Capital Bank. So
everybody's greasing his palm.
Yep. He's 68.
Well, then he ought to get Social Security too.
Yeah.
Medicare.
Oh yeah, sure.
Paying a lot for this guy.
Yeah. So I don't.
I'll tell you what. Does the governor appoint this?
I'm sure he does. Yeah.
So I got to get a list of people ready for when I'm governor to appointed places. Now, what job did you want again? MnDOT commissioner? Is that what we decided on you?
No, I think I wanted head of the Met Council.
No, I want you. I don't want you on that. So I'm not going to appoint anybody to that.
If I am, I'll make sure they don't do anything.
Okay.
See,
well, I'd rather have you run like MnDOT or something.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds.
I don't know, Jay. I don't know.
That sounds like a headache.
Have
you been on the roads this spring?
I drive a truck for a living. I've been on there.
There's more potholes out there than there are insects, and there's
more potholes than there is tar on the roads.
Yes,
it's pretty bad. I'll tell you what. I know we have friends in Isani County.
Surface of the moon.
Isani County has some of the worst roads other than Wisconsin.
Yeah, looks like the surface of the moon. That's all I gotta say. Or at least what they portrayed it to be on the
well, I wasn't going to go there, but I'm just saying surface of the moon might be easier to drive on.
Yeah. So.
Well, I'll tell you what. You think these buildings are expensive now, Jay? I'll tell you what. The trend that we're going now is that these are going to cost, anything's going to cost way, way more because of all this green infrastructure. Yeah. And again, let me just back up one more time. I am fine with being environmentally conscious. I am fine with, building things efficiently, especially when it comes to heating and air conditioning. I am okay with all that stuff. What I'm against is this silly garbage to try to force us to change how we live.
Yeah.
And you go anywhere, I'll tell you, you go any government building, you know what you're going to see outside? Electric vehicle stations with nobody there.
Yeah.
Because, CJ, we got to build the infrastructure to try to force everybody to do it.
Right. Well,
because these things go 5 miles on a full charge?
Yeah.
So I mean,
you got to stop often and you take a couple hours to.
You add Minnesota weather into it that has to take its toll. It takes a toll on your gas car. It
takes a toll. But think about taking. Maybe newer phones are a little better. Do you remember the older ones? You take it outside on a day when it's like 10 degrees, and within like 15 minutes, it's
all fog.
It shuts off because the battery drains so fast. That's
what happens. I know it. But so you got to have them everywhere. And I'll tell you what, These things are being required everywhere, of public and private. We've seen it in Northfield. We've seen it in Minneapolis, Duluth, St. Paul, St. Louis Park, Edina. They're all requiring these things for new construction, and it's only a matter of time before old construction is subject to this too, because you're not going to be grandfathered in. You can't force electric on everybody.
Right.
And not put electric stations everywhere.
Right. And there are cities currently, like St. Louis Park, that if you're going to redo a parking lot, dig it up and completely redo it instead of patching the holes, which is useless, by the way. But if you're going to totally redo it, you have to put in electric car charging stations. They require it.
Yeah, and eventually everything's going to have to be dug up and redone. You can only patch something so long before, it's like a driveway. At some point, you have to retar everything.
Right.
And you can't just patch it up. So that's their way of reaching a goal by 2050. We'll grandfather you in, but we're not. Is what they're basically saying. And they have to, because they control the permitting process. They can stop it at any time they want. They can shut your business down.
It's the biggest mafia racket I've ever seen.
You know what? Speaking of mafia.
Yeah.
No, you know what? I'll save that for a different show.
Okay.
Let me just say this. That's one element of it. I mean, the other part of this green building stuff, requiring all sorts of things on the inside. First off, it starts with government buildings. And, of course, they can do anything they want to because they can bill you.
Right.
If they don't have the money, they can build it anyway.
Yeah.
It's called full faith and credit in the government. Translation, we can tax the zippity-doo-dah out of you.
Right.
There is no limit on what there is, but bonding has its limitations, but they're pretty high here in Minnesota. So they're going to, Duluth, for example, has a 22-page document on how they are going to renovate the entire city. And this is what? The fifth largest city in the state? They're still up in the top 5, ain't they?
Did they slip that far? I guess they did. What, Bloomington's like 3 right now? And then...
I have to look it up.
It might be 5, yeah. Forever.
They were third for a long time.
They were third for a long time behind Minneapolis and St. Paul. And then I think Bloomington crept up above them, and possibly...
Could Rochester?
No, it wasn't Rochester.
It was Rochester.
It is?
The 2020 census, this is the top 11.
Well, you figure the Mayo is growing leaps and bounds. I mean, that's a medical city, you know.
Well, that's the whole reason Rochester exists.
Duluth, they're shutting everything down. That's the difference.
Yeah, you've got Minneapolis, St. Paul, Rochester, Bloomington, Duluth, Brooklyn Park, Plymouth, Woodbury, Lakeville, Blaine, Maple Grove, St. Cloud. That's the top 12.
Wow.
So our hometown, my hometown of Crystal, Jay, 49th in the city, in the state on population. New Hope has dropped to number 55.
Yeah.
What else we got on there? Champlin, that's 47. Elk River has jumped up to 41. Hard to believe Brooklyn Center is still 31st. That's just difficult to believe.
I swore.
Yeah, Duluth, 86,372. It is, Bloomington is 89,000, 121,000 in Rochester.
Huh.
What is that, Olmsted County?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Minneapolis and St. Paul both approximately losing 5,000 residents in the year 2021.
Yeah. Huh.
Big surprise. Big
Right.
surprise that people are leaving there. I'm just shocked. Why would they
I'm not
leave?
surprised
Why would
by
they
people
leave
leaving anywhere in this state.
Why would they leave from 2021 to 2020 to 2021? I don't know what would make them do that. I just have no idea.
I just want to follow up. I made an assertion. I always want to make sure that we can back these things up. Michael Vekich first got involved in politics when he sought the Republican nomination for governor in 2002.
Really?
Yes.
Michael Vekich, I have no idea who you are.
I do believe that it's possible, if I'm remembering right, that he
you a
chaired.
good friend? earlier in the Republican Party?
Yes, and I'm trying to remember which ones they were.
Really?
Because I knew the name, and it's like starting to come back to me.
I don't remember because I never paid attention during that stuff.
Yeah. So
I couldn't tell you who chaired anything. I have no idea.
yeah.
It's too busy rubbing elbows.
Right.
Or people were rubbing elbows with me. Let's get that right.
Great conservative guy, so wrapped up in requesting our tax dollars for multi-million-dollar projects that government's neck deep in. Thank you for putting your conservative principles on display and helping the state instead of putting everybody in the poorhouse.
I've said it before. When it comes to sports stadiums, I don't think there's any party that has a high road on that. I mean, we've rebuilt every sports. I mean, the part of the Vikings stadium, remember, was buying off Target Center.
Yeah,
that the state coughed up renovations for Target Center.
Yeah.
That was how they bought off the Minneapolis City Council. The council would have rejected it, but they bought off taking the Target Center off their dole. So we, the taxpayers, did that, even though it's the city of Minneapolis gets all the money from it.
right.
It's just a scam. Can we just call it a scam?
Oh, these are two separate things. So he's leading the Minnesota Sports Facilities Authority. I also I didn't forget. I thought maybe it was the same thing and it was a different name. Vice chair of the Minnesota Ballpark Authority as well. So what doesn't he do in
We
this
need
state?
2 commissions for ballparks?
Yeah, I guess we do. And with being the Minnesota State Colleges and Universities Board of Trustee chair, then, that's super conservative. You think about your universities. That's great.
I'd like to know, too. I mean,
Yeah.
I understand that we have to have some public buildings, and you have to have them if the deal's right.
Yeah.
But here's my question.
Shouldn't be in a lean-to shanty, although it's tempting.
Well, but I mean, what is the argument, Jay? And I refresh my memory because I'm so glad to have the stadium arguments behind me.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't care less if the Vikings moved to Timbuktu. But I mean, what is the argument for publicly owned stadiums? In other words, there was a time where the teams owned their own stadiums.
Yes.
They managed them.
Yeah.
They bought the land. They did all that. And I know Milwaukee's the city that kind of changed all that with County Stadium in the 50s. But what is the argument for, well, we need to build them a stadium? What is the rationale for that? I mean, I'm just curious how I don't remember exactly how all that was justified.
Yeah, I don't know.
When the players come here, they make money, and or they people come here from other cities and they spend money. How do you quantify that?
Yeah,
I mean, let's just pretend. I don't doubt it happens because I've gone to other places to see the Twins.
Right.
So it does happen, but how do you quantify who's staying at a hotel, who's eating at the restaurants, and who's paid cash?
I suppose you can look at. They can probably separate out, okay, here's when the games were, here's how businesses did, when there's games versus not games. And, I suppose you can look at do they have access to everybody's? I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Or they do interviews maybe. I don't know. Mike Vekic did often chair SD46 conventions.
Oh, okay.
So yes, I knew he was from this.
So they were
metro
46
area
at one time, or what?
So
was
yeah,
it?
that's what the old St. Louis Park.
What city is he from?
St.
What
Louis
city
Park,
is he from?
Golden Valley. I don't know, but
is that where he's from?
That's where. Well, that's where 46 is. You don't often chair the one you're from, but
true.
He must have had ties to the area.
Or no offense, he's the only one who wanted to do it.
Well, I'll plead the fifth on that.
I knew you knew him, Jay. It sounds like a friend of yours.
No.
Well, let me
yes
add something to this. Let me get back, but I want to go back to the stadium thing for a minute.
Yes.
I mean, it is a very because you look back at hockey, it was largely Norm Coleman who had a lot to do.
Yep.
With hockey going to
another Republican.
Well, and I like Norm personally. I've met him a few times, and I St. Paul was a dump when he took it over.
It's still a dump.
It's still a dump. It wasn't as big a dump in the 90s, but it was still...
Everything closed at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Unless there was a game.
Yeah, that's
then
true.
Then it closed at 10:30. I remember I'd play at the 4th Street station a lot in the early 2000s, and it's like you get there to load in, and like everybody's gone already, right? I mean, you're loading in at like 5 for a show that maybe you're loading in closer to 7, and you have a show that goes from like 9 till 1:30 in the morning, and there's nobody around. It's like ghost town at 7 p.m. It's like crazy. Wow. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
I don't know where I was going with that, but
sorry. So yes, he Norm Coleman.
We championed the Twins too.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there was a referendum that failed or something when he was there. Hubert Humphrey was another person who.
Yeah.
I mean, the stadium was named after his dad. I mean,
right.
He was another person who championed stadiums.
Humpty Dump.
Those two guys ran against each other. I mean, there was, Roger Moe supported the stadiums, and Tim Pawlenty, the guy he ran against, signed the Twins stadium into law. I mean, there is no left. Mark Dayton talked about how he didn't want a stadium, yet he did it.
Yeah.
As soon as he won, he changed his tune, and with the help of Kurt Zellers and a few other people. So I mean, it just the idea anybody has a monopoly on that is
right.
The total joke. Once again, you listen to Democrats and Republicans make promises to you, and you might as well just flush the toilet with it. But I want to add something here to this.
Okay.
Reducing transportation emissions through better zoning. There's a group out there called Drive Electric Minnesota. You could find them at driveelectricmn.org, and they give this is kind of like Green Steps, Jay.
Yes.
Where they make, quote, voluntary recommendations. Now, best practices on that.
Right.
And what they advocate is to change zoning laws to do exactly what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
The 8 best practices, this is all about around electric vehicles. Electric vehicle charging stations for permitted land use. In other words, you can't get permit without installing these.
Right.
They have equipment standards. They have space design standards. They have required minimum parking requirements. In other words, if you have 100 spaces, X amount have to be for electric vehicles.
Right.
So there's this whole list here of things, and this is, I love how they put it: better zoning to change the world.
Wow.
So you wonder, how does this go from city to city? How do Duluth and Edina have the same things? How's that possible? Do they talk to each other? They have dinner, when they're 150 miles away from each other? Well, they're all reading this, again, all reading from the same script.
Right. Oh, I see. The Great Plains Institute is part of this. No surprise there. I don't know if we've done a full podcast on the Great Plains Institute, but I know it's come up in some of our trainings and probably in the podcast as well.
If we did, it was a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
I'm sure we have. But look, there's countless groups out there.
Yeah.
Countless. I mean, I can't even... I don't know that... I think you could write a book on the groups, let alone...
Right. Problem is, by the time you wrote it and published it, you'd have about 50 more of them, and
probably I don't. I'll tell you what. You want to get to radical cities. We mentioned St. Paul, but St. Paul has a sustainable building ordinance. They have an entire PDF and an entire page on parking lots and what to do with the existing buildings, HVAC requirements, rehab of certain projects, sustainable building standards. They have case studies, and so on and so forth. They have just entire hundreds of pages. You can't even siphon it all. on how it's going to change. Of course, they take their lead, if you will, from the Green Building Council. That is who decided standards, I guess, and they've been adopted by a lot of states, and which of course trickles down to the county, trickles down to the city, trickles down to the school districts.
Yeah.
You go into school districts, you'll find the same damn thing. You go into counties, you'll find the same thing. Here's what I don't understand to fight this, Jay, is that you can fight this all you want to, but how do you fight a million targets?
Well, that's part of the problem. Is that you can't, and that's designed that way on purpose, because you put your attention over here, and then you got this group over here doing this, so you go over there, and then you got this group that's over here doing this, and you can't. But that's part of the problem, and that's part of why they do what they do as well.
Well, I mean, let me give you an example here in St. Paul. St. Paul has a case study.
Yeah.
Ace Hardware, the family-owned business on St. Paul's east side. In 2012, the business relocated. And since the project, they have received over $200,000 in public investment. Now, would that be tax dollars?
Yes.
Okay. So it's not an investment. Okay.
No.
I didn't voluntarily pay for something.
You don't get a rate of return on that.
I don't get that. It was required to comply with the Sustainable Building Ordinance. It did so by following the Minnesota B3 Sustainable Building Standard and the St. Paul Overlay. Green attributes include efficient heating and cooling systems, proximity to transit and rain gardens to manage storm water. Wow. So in other words, the city told them, okay, you want to relocate. Here's where you're going to go. Here's how you're going to build it. Here's what we're going to do. And by the way, here's some free money.
Yeah.
But they were bribed. Can we just say they were bribed?
Yeah.
If the mob did, this is racketeering. Mm-hmm. Isn't it?
Absolutely.
What do you call this? That's what the mob does. They go around and they say, look, pay us. You got protection.
Right.
I'm just unbelievable. Of course, it's in St. Paul. Nothing's unbelievable. What am I saying?
Right.
Nothing's unbelievable. You think this can't happen in cities near you, folks?
Oh, absolutely.
You know where Northfield, Minnesota is? St. Olaf?
I do.
St. Olaf
they
is?
are. It's crazy town. Yeah, you got the two colleges there. You got
what's the other one?
Carleton College.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's funny. I sit there and I read through, and I see so many of the same things. Listen to this.
Yes.
Sustainable rating system, LEED standards, Green Star Homes, B3 guidelines. Did I just say that in St. Paul? Green communities, park smart, as opposed to parking dumb.
Is that like everybody around here parks dumb because they take up 2, 3, 4 parking spots?
I don't think that's what they
Or
mean.
they park and they, instead of rolling down their windows, they open the door. Yeah.
Here's what Northfield actually puts in their green policy.
Yeah.
New construction and redevelopment projects will come from the following sources of at least $150,000. Take a guess at what those are. How would you fund economic development?
How would I fund it?
No, how would government fund it?
Oh, how would government fund it?
You want redevelopment? How do they do it?
Well, they do it through
your three favorite letters.
My 3 favorite letters. Right.
3 of them. TIF.
Oh, yeah, TIF. TIF financing. Yep, that is how they do it. I was thinking about like rebates and tax abatements and things like that. Yes.
Housing and Redevelopment Authority loans. Mm-hmm. Who's the Housing and Redevelopment Authority? Oh, isn't that the council?
Yeah.
They just put on a different hat?
Yes.
Economic Development Authority loans. Oh, who's that? Isn't that the council?
Yeah.
Bonds. Selling bonds so that a business can move, get money for free, and we go into debt as a city to pay for it.
That's unacceptable. Take out a corporate bond if you're looking to, as a development company, to fund a project.
Why do that when they'll do it for you?
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Northfield's climate action plan is to be 100% carbon free by 2030.
I'm going to take.
I want everybody to resign. I want all of you idiots to resign if that doesn't happen.
I am going to take weekly trips to Northfield just so I can drive around and eat burgers.
I'm going to go there and pass gas right on City Hall. Just cut a loud one. Just so they can't be.
Yeah. So Northfield.
I'll be a tootaholic.
So because Northfield adopted this policy, it joined the cities of Duluth, Maplewood, Minneapolis, St. Paul, St. Louis Park, of course, and Rochester, who have all formal sustainable building policy, along with another city that is in process of creating its own policy. So the cities of St. Paul and St. Louis Park have been implementing their policies for more than 10 years.
Well, it's a race to see who's worse.
Right. It is a race to the bottom, isn't it?
But I think what's very hard to quantify, Jay, is the cost of this to you and me. I mean, it's not only a cost that we have to subsidize electric vehicles, subsidize their companies, which of course is corporate welfare. The same thing the people who who support this supposedly say they're against. Yeah. We now have to we subsidize solar panel companies, and now we've got to subsidize the buildings that this stuff's going to go in. I mean, it's never going to end. We subsidize the vehicles. We subsidize everything.
Right.
They're not private businesses out there competing for the electric vehicles. Here's an idea. Create a great product that people want to buy.
Yeah.
And do a Henry Ford. Make it affordable. Figure out how you can make it better. And technology gets better and cheaper.
Better, faster, cheaper.
Yeah, not more expensive.
Right.
I mean, the price of, price of a computer has gone down, not up. So, I mean, you get more for your money than you did with a word processor, which is what I went to college with in the 90s. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do that instead of running to the government with your hands out. That includes you too, XL Energy.
No kidding.
I mean, you talk about, I mean, here's a company that has a legal monopoly. They get monopoly status.
Yep.
And at the very same breath, they get everything handed to them to do whatever they want to.
Yeah.
They're just lackeys for the government. Xcel Energy,
absolutely.
You're a disgrace. You're disgraceful.
Well, and we'll cover this in a later show, but we know for a fact that in Sherburne County, they're shutting down all the coal-fired power plants.
Decommissioning, yeah.
Yeah, they're decommissioning them. But here's the thing. Based on the Inflation Reduction Act, they're actually getting paid to not only shut down those plants, but to totally take them down to the bricks. Like, get rid of the entire thing like it was never there. Like, actually physically.
Well, yeah, they need high density housing up there, so they're
take the building out, but yet they don't have a plan to put in enough solar, wind, hydro, whatever to be able to make up the difference. So you're looking at blackouts and brownouts.
Even if they did, there's the technology with solar and wind is not there to replace what they have.
Even with you living as close as you are to Sherburne County, that doesn't happen.
Still not possible. It's a forced transition that they are in bed with.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, the U.S. government is paying them so that they're not losing money by shutting these plants down.
And not only that, but
amazing.
But that also artificially keeps the price of insurance high.
Right.
It's like subsidizing farming. You pay farmers not to grow something, it creates a scarcity.
Yeah.
The scarcity creates high prices.
Yeah. So you get nailed twice.
Yeah. So you're paying for the energy. At the same time, you're losing future energies getting decommissioned.
And you're paying the government to do it. Through property taxes.
What's the CEO of Xcel? What does that a-hole make? I'd like to know what he makes.
Yeah.
He or she,
too
I
much.
guess. I don't
too much.
I'm going to look it up.
Yeah, are you?
If it's a woman, she better be ugly.
So you got Xcel doing that. You also got Xcel out in Denver. They started trying to control the smart meters, the smart thermostats out there.
Some guy named Bob Frenzel.
Okay. It's not my friend, Zell.
God, he only got an $8.3 million bonus last year. I mean, that's not very much.
I'd take it.
Yeah, it's just.
Of course, they wouldn't like my policies. There's that.
Who else we got? Brett Carter as the vice president. Christopher B. Clark. Oops.
Yeah.
Off of something. I don't know what he is. Doesn't matter. God, it keeps sending me to this other stupid page.
Huh.
God, you're.
They don't want us to know. They don't want us to know the truth, Andrew.
You know what they're doing? They're listening to this. That's what's going on.
That's probably it.
They're sending me to a different page.
Huh.
They're doing this on purpose. It tells me to explore an area. I don't want to explore some damn area.
How about you explore the area that you're taking all the power plants out of and stop? You go talk to some people that live there. How about that, Excel?
God, it keeps going. Okay, so they're in Colorado, Michigan, Minnesota, New Mexico, North and South Dakota, Texas, and Wisconsin.
They're all over the place.
My goodness.
Yeah.
I mean, Texas alone, that's what? 1/10 of the population, maybe?
Yeah.
I don't know. 1/15?
Yeah.
That's a lot
You
of
got
people.
the third largest city in Houston.
And it's the second largest state and growing.
Yeah.
I mean, Texas is very much a growing state.
Absolutely.
He's been there a year and a half. He's been there.
Yeah. Well, anyways, I
digress.
You got companies like that are just ransacking the people of this nation, and they're taking government money. They're doing what the government wants. And it's not for the benefit of the people that have to give that money compulsorily, right? Compulsorily, whatever the word is.
I know what you're trying to say.
They're forced into giving this money to the government that then goes to Excel to shut down their power, and they have to sit in the dark.
Well, I think what's also a problem is the fact that this stuff is so not transparent. I mean, so much of this stuff you find out later. I mean, you don't know it at the time. Then you realize where your tax dollars are actually going. I mean, how many times does a bill come out and you figure out what's in it afterward? I mean, that's
all of them.
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of thing that's happening all the time in our government, and there's nobody with the guts to stop it. I mean, there just isn't.
Yeah.
But, and I tell you what, I think Elon Musk is a super cool guy.
Yeah.
I'd like to see how much government money he's gotten, because there's no way that he's created all that stuff without, I mean, he's a rebel. He's a different kind of guy. But I think he's cool, but
SpaceX is working with the government. I mean, NASA's using
you can't tell me but you can't tell me the Tesla wasn't partially funded by us. So, I mean, it's amazing how many of these companies out there talk about a free market, preach a free market, and yet the chance they get to get your money, they do it without even thinking. We don't have a free market anymore. The free market doesn't exist. It's all who will pay to play, and the rest of us just get stuck with the bill. That's what we have right now. When I hear a politician talk about the free market, I wonder what country they're living in, because it's not this one.
Right.
It just absolutely isn't. So I don't know. And I mean, you go back to the bailouts, and you go back to banking, and it goes back to ESG scores, and who's going to get what, and you're going to have. They're all these corporations are slobbering all over themselves to try to become the next Disney.
Right.
I mean, it's
ridiculous.
I don't know, though. I'll tell you what, business and government together, it's. I don't know how regular citizens fight that. I don't know how you can. I don't know how you can fight Xcel Energy when you're required to pay them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first thing that you have to do is you got to do some homework, and you got to come to the realization this is fascism.
Okay, it might be fascism, Jay, but that's not a solution.
No, that's not a solution, but you're not going to be motivated to change things until you know there's a problem. They don't even know there's a problem right now. They don't see it as fascism. They don't see it as
all people care about is
the government controls.
All they care about is they turn on the light switch, something comes on. That's
and that they don't pay too much. But we're getting to the point where we're paying too much too, because of the policies of this president.
Well, it's the Weimar Republic, and it was going on before Joe Biden. I mean, this whole thing has been coming to a head for a long, long time. I mean. Inflation is here because of policies of the last 20 years. It's not just here because of shutdowns. that was the catalyst that broke everyone's back. But it's been going on for a long, long time because the government has no control over monetary policy. That is largely in the hands
of the Fed.
A handful of bankers.
Yep.
A handful of people who chair this stuff.
J.P. Morgan, Wells Fargo.
You know the people. Chase Manhattan, and all those people who have got an oligopoly. They've got an oligopoly on money in this country. So they're the people who fund our debt. They decide who gets what. They're the movers and shakers.
Mm-hmm.
And the way to fight, again, to me, everything starts there. Because if you control the money, then you literally control everything. This is one of I go to a credit union now, Jay.
That's good.
I mean, I still have an account at, I don't say Wells Fargo too loud.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm slowly moving my money out of
good.
places like that because I don't trust them and I don't.
Shouldn't.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to, I want to support the people who are outside of that. And it's not easy. It's not easy to put your money in places that are not part of the system because there's a lot of benefits to being in with that crowd. So like the FDIC insured banks, but that's also created the haves and have-nots that we have now. So, I mean, I don't know. I think those places have to do more, I think, to get people's business too. But then again, handing out more loans, handing out that increases the inflation that we're already having.
Well, and we've got a government that's coming after crypto too, because they want to have a digital dollar, and they don't want competition when they do it. They want to shut down your,
I'll tell you another thing too is hard money they're going to go after. Because
absolutely.
One thing that is inflation proof, tax proof, is having gold and silver.
Right.
Even gold and silver, you could sell that and pocket all the money because you've already paid taxes on it.
Right.
So they're going to come after that at some point too because they don't control the prices of precious metals. That's something that it's a worldwide market that the Fed can't control.
Well, even cash.
Yeah.
That they don't control cash. You can spend it however you want to. And
they control the supply, but they don't control what you do with it.
Right. Once it's in my hand, they don't control that.
Yeah.
They
try to, though. They try to maneuver you to buy certain things and things like that. But again, you have too much choice. That's too much choice for you.
Yes.
Can't have that. Can't have Jace. He can't choose between 20 different restaurants to go out to eat.
No.
He can't choose between 10 different places to go do this or that. We've got to keep everything in the little net here of I'll tell you what, it is I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't. I don't know that I'm with you on the digital dollar thing, but I'll
have to send you some research.
At some point, it's kind of like the public school system. It's going to collapse under its own weight at some point.
Well, that's
what happened in Greece.
That's what they're waiting for.
Yeah, I mean, then that's the takeover. That's the burning of the rights tag. I mean, if I can make that comparison.
Well, it's the same thing.
Create a crisis.
It's not just a comparison. It's the exact model.
Well, I mean, look at it this way. I mean, look at since the bailouts.
Yeah.
I mean, who came out ahead? If you really want to sit back,
the banks came out.
The banks came out ahead. The banks were allowed to merge. The banks were allowed to eat the smaller banks.
Yeah.
The banks were allowed to consolidate, and they came out with not one drop of power. Ben Bernanke was allowed to go in front of the United States Congress and wouldn't tell us where our money went.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and a credit to Bernie Sanders, he attached an amendment to every bill he could in the Senate to try to force Bernanke to answer that question. Was voted down every time.
Wow.
By Republicans and Democrats. And whatever you think of Mr. Sanders, we needed to know where our money went. He's right.
Yeah.
And we deserved that. It was done in our name. It was done at 4:00 in the morning, one of those like the Patriot Act. And we should have gotten that. And to this day, we don't know that.
Right.
Well, we know where it went. We just don't know specifically.
He does notice what a lot of the issues are. We just vehemently disagree on the solutions for those problems.
That's true. He's not wrong when he talks about how college is a scam.
Yeah.
He's right. His solution, though, is to make it free, which will make it worse.
Right.
So I respect what he says. He does bring up issues others don't talk about.
Yeah.
It's true,
But So we're stuck in this place where we are just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. And, and we've got it happening now where China is working with Saudi Arabia and Russia and Saudi Arabia and Iran and Saudi Arabia, and they're forming this coalition with North Korea, and all of a sudden they're starting to take petrodollars in Indian rupees and whatever Brazil, it's not going to be good for us.
Well, Jay, let me put the ball in your court for a minute. How do you fix this? Because, okay, I see what's happening. How can you not see China and Russia China's our number one enemy.
And they're positioning themselves to be the world power. He's like going on a victory tour here.
Yeah, we're letting them do it. We've been letting them do it for decades. We open trade with them has done nothing but get them to buy our bonds, which of course they hold. It's too profitable for China to call them in.
Right.
We're paying them off left and right. You've got the ruble, has been strengthened in the last year or two. And it continues to be strengthened because Russia's just doing business with other countries.
Right.
And back in the Cold War, there was a concerted effort to divide Russia and China.
Yeah.
There was a concerted effort by President Eisenhower, President Kennedy, other people, culminating with President Nixon, who was the first to recognize China.
Mm-hmm.
As much of an anti-communist as he was, it was all strategic.
Yeah.
To drive a wedge between those two countries. And what we're doing is we have done nothing but push them closer together.
Absolutely.
They're butt buddies right now. And they're positioning themselves to be 1 and 2.
Yeah.
But how do we reverse that? I can think of a lot of things from our foreign policy to our banking to our trade policies, but nothing's going to happen quickly.
No, and we are in a really tough spot because, we continue to have inflation go up and it's projected to go up more. Gas just went up because of Saudi Arabia saying we're not going to produce as much.
Where's Biden's tweets on gas prices?
Yeah,
I haven't seen those in the last few months.
Go check. It's $3.50 a gallon right now.
What will it be in July?
They're saying it might be $5.
Or higher.
Yeah. But here's the thing. Okay, so the Fed raises the interest rates, right? Because then you can pull in more money to control the supply and have there be less dollars and supposedly bring inflation down. But then with what's happening with these banks, they're printing more dollars because they're bailing out these banks that are failing. You've got the banks of the Fed that are buying up these other banks that are failing. So they're getting bought out. And so again, the Fed's printing dollars, even though they're trying to control the dollar supply by raising the interest rates. And so we're really heading toward this period of hyperinflation if we don't watch it, because we're going to have high interest rates and we're going to have high inflation. That is more destructive than I can ever explain.
That's Weimar Republic level.
Yes.
Well, and also, you think about it like this. Inflation with high interest rates, what's the end game there? How does that end? How do you reverse that? That's worse than old stagflation under Jimmy Carter.
Well, and that's where the new digital dollar would come in. You could say, you know what, we're gonna have a bit of a reset here. You know what? You give me the old greenbacks. We'll give you this Fed account. You can have these digital dollars. Everything will equal out. You're going to have to pay.
But how do they control the digital dollar? You still have a money supply. You still have inflation, because that doesn't stop inflation but it controls where we spend. Is that the way that they are going to stop it?
Well, theoretically, because you'll have an exchange rate. The digital dollar, they will just say it's worth more than what the greenback is.
Yeah, but you pay for that eventually too.
Yeah.
When you came off the gold standard, we went through that period where we tried to exchange everything and.
Well, we've changed our currency a handful of times during the course of this nation,
And there were a few times we almost changed it and we didn't. The free silver movement.
Yeah.
William Jennings Bryan and others. It's been...
But every time we've changed it, we've lost value.
And status in the world.
Yeah.
the world doesn't have to go by the dollar.
No.
No rule that says they have to.
And they won't be soon.
See
the way it's going.
I give us another 50 years.
I don't. I
just want to be dead.
I think a lot of this is going to go in by the time that we have a new president come in, because Joe Biden will not get reelected, and so you're going to have to, have that war, with China and Russia. You're going to have a lot of these things going on. Switch over to the digital dollar, because they're bent on making this happen, and they know they've got to make their moves because they're not going to win in this next election cycle.
We'll see. I mean, I agree with you partly there, but the other side can always screw things up too.
They're masters at that.
I mean, if current Joe Biden couldn't get elected dog catcher.
Right.
I'm not sure he can safely walk into 20 states in this country. But at the same time, I mean, I'm being facetious there.
Right.
But I mean, at the same time, I don't know. I don't know that that's true, that he can't win. I don't think he will, but, nobody thought Donald Trump would win. Nobody thought the Dems would kind of hold their own last year. Nobody thought, you've seen elections that make no sense.
Well,
so
that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how an 81-year-old guy that can't talk in a complete sentence gets elected. I mean, here's why I think he's going to lose. Because he's going to get out campaigned.
Yeah.
He can't campaign.
He can't campaign from the basement.
Yeah, and he won't be able to ditch and dodge and use COVID as an excuse to go eat ice cream instead of doing things. And I think that is ultimately, and I do think he'll be a drag on the Democrats in a lot of places. And he was smart to not show his face in a lot of places last time
He
around.
can't do that this time.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to run with him no matter what kind of shape we're in. And again, I hope we're doing well. I do not hope for bad things.
I hate this. I hate going to paying $50 twice a week for gas.
Yeah,
I hate going to eggs are $8 a dozen.
My wife and I sometimes have a $150 grocery bill. That's her and I, and she's thin as heck. I don't know how we have a bill that much. So, granted, we can afford it, but that's not the point. It's just, look, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to hell in a handbasket or not. I know we've talked all around here tonight, but I mean, it is all related. It is all related in a way because the environmental movement is in with these banks and in with these corporations and in with the worldwide elites. Mm-hmm. They're all on the same page when it comes to this stuff.
Absolutely. There's all these, goals to be carbon free or carbon neutral or whatever by 2050, 2040 if you're in Minnesota. And so it's hard. And you would ask me, what would I do? Well, it's like, I think you've got to reverse a lot of the stuff that we've done. You've got to become energy independent again. You have to make sure that you get control over the border. You have to make sure that there are good jobs and good training for good jobs here in this country, and that you're not just throwing cash at people, but that they actually go out and work, and that this whole AI movement is really going to challenge a lot of that, because we're going to see, I think, a total makeover of our workforce, and jobs that people used to go into are going to be automated, and they're going to have to find something else, and we're going to have to figure out what is it that only people can do that you can't automate with AI. And it's
what it's going to be. It's going to be universal basic income. That's what we're headed towards.
Well, I hope not, because that's going to cause a lot of people to commit suicide, which is tied in. When you have no purpose, what do you do? Exactly. But these people as well, because us breathing, us passing gas is bad on the environment. And so population reduction is part of that plan.
Yes, that's all part of it. Absolutely. I think people hunting will be legal in some states.
I mean, you look at guys like Paul Ehrlich from University of Texas, and some of these other guys that, Margaret Sanger, that they want less population.
Yeah, they openly advocate for it. I mean, all the elites. It's you know what it is. It is the Nazi philosophy. It is undesirables they want gone.
Well, even before the Nazis, you had in England the Fabian socialists that were pushing for that. I mean, the Nazis really got that from the Fabian socialists.
Well, and you know where the people who advocate that now got it from? They got it from the Nazis. They don't say it. Nobody associates with them with it.
Right.
But that was the whole point. Get rid of undesirables.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a drain on society, we'll kill you.
Right.
Put you in a camp.
Yep.
Isn't that what population reduction is?
Yeah, it kind of is.
I mean, forced sterilization. I mean, it's... we're not far from it, I don't think. I mean,
well, some people, there is, in the abortion bill that passed, there were provisions for sterilization of some segments of people based on like mental capacity and stuff like that. So yeah, we're right there.
That's freedom, folks.
Mm-hmm. Makes you want to stand up and wave a flag, doesn't it?
Well, I just think that the other thing is people also have to do action. Don't go somewhere and protest. I mean, action is what's needed.
Right.
You need to run for office.
Yes.
You need to change your bank account. You need action. Not having a meeting, not that kind of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of people who do that, sit around and talk like you and I are. But I mean, action has to happen.
Yeah.
That's what has to happen. I mean, I consider what we're doing informing people. I mean, that's how I view it.
Yeah, we spend a couple hours a week doing this or whatever, but it's what we do when we leave here, that matters.
It's a scary thing, and it's tough for people too. Where do you work? It's hard to avoid these big mega corporations. I mean, it's difficult. You have to work.
Right.
You have to pay bills.
If you can be self-employed in this age, I would say you're better off for it.
Probably. There's issues with that, though, too, Jay.
Yeah.
There's paying for your retirement. There's health insurance. Again, the system is stacked against you if you are an entrepreneur.
And you're going up against the big corporations.
And I can get a loan for $100,000 tomorrow to go back to college.
Yeah.
Good luck getting a $10,000 business loan.
Right.
Good luck, folks. Small business SBA, they're one of the hardest places to go and get a loan from.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's the deck is stacked again. I respect the hell out of them. I wish we had more of them. I wish I was one. But it is what it is. You got to put food on the table. I understand.
Yeah.
Now, Jay, you need to bring us up a little bit. Now
it's a tall order.
Now I'm pissed off again. I walked in here in a half-decent mood. You've destroyed it in an hour and a half. I just want you to know. Actually, you haven't. It's the BS we're talking about. Styling and profiling, jet flying, limousine riding, wheeling, dealing, son of a gun. Sign off. Sermon Jason Bradley, take it away.
Thank you, Andrew. Yes. Where do you start with something like that? I know, we sound like Chicken Little and the sky is falling, huh? Well, it is. And that's not hyperbole. Things are falling down around us all over the place. And whether we look at our cities burning to the ground, the skyrocketing crime rates, I kind of sound like the guy from, what's that movie, Network, right? Howard, that...
Got me. If it's after 1989, I don't know it.
Oh. You would know this. Anyways. It's important that we are able to take a look at these things and not get overwhelmed by them. I guess if there's any hope in it, it's that we don't need to be overwhelmed by this stuff, even though it's easy to do because there's so much of it coming from every angle, and the left seems to have 30,000 groups for everything, and then you have a bunch of spineless cowards on the right that don't do anything. Well, you be the one that does do something. You be the one that does speak out. You be the one that starts a blog or a podcast or local access TV show, or you tell your friends and neighbors, you have public meetings, you run for something, you start a business, you give back, you volunteer at your school, and you do the exact opposite of what they're doing. Those are the things that we need to do. We need people of courage that are looking for adventure, that pioneer spirit where we continue to go into the new, because in the new is our answer. The things that we have been doing, they're just wrong. And they could not be more wrong. So what do we got to do? We got to step in a different direction, because if we keep doing the same old thing over and over, we're going to get the same result. If we expect anything else, that is the definition of insanity. But we're not insane, are we? Maybe we are for continuing to fight. But you know what? I'd rather be called insane because I was not going to give up, because I had persistence, because I was able to take a stand against what is going on in our city, in our nation, than just be seen as someone who sits down and shuts up and fits in because it's easier. You see, there is a great evil going on today, and yes, I mean that. There is a great evil going on today in our society. And whether it's killing babies, whether it is sterilizing certain groups of people, whether it is stripping the wealth of a nation away and gathering it to yourself because you're in the ruling class, whether it is just the way that we have devalued people. There are such great evils, and it seems like every new thing that passes is something else that leads us away from where we belong instead of toward what we were created to do. That's why the good Lord put us here and gave us something to do so that we could protect and defend the thing he gave us, so that we could be good stewards of this world, of the resources, and too much time. Not that it's over. It's not over yet. It's not over by a long shot. But what it is it's time to get motivated. It's time to move. It's time to do something, because if you don't, if your life is you go to work, you come home, you watch TV, you go to bed, you wake up, you go to work, you come home, you watch TV, you go to bed. Oh, what good does that do? It doesn't do good for you. It doesn't do good for your children. It doesn't do good for your community. It doesn't do good for your city. No, we need people that want to be involved, that want to see change happen, that are willing to step in and put into place the principles that draw us away from the edge, because we're so close to the precipice. But we cannot fall. We can't. We don't have time to rebuild again. We don't have the space we need to be able to freely work and operate in a way that is going to bring us into this new age that we're entering. There's so much that's coming our way, and we're not yet ready, but we can be. It doesn't have to go down like this. I know it's going to be white knuckling things for the next couple of years, but if we're able to hold on, if we're able to exert a little influence, if we're able to walk in a little power, if we serve each other the way that we ought to, with humility and kindness, things will change. So we want to know if you're here with us. We want to know if you're willing to step up and do that very thing. Share this podcast far and wide. We're entering into days that we've never seen before. And they are amazing to watch, but they're also frightening. And there are people around you that are frightened because they don't know what to do. They haven't seen this before. spread it, share it far and wide. And if you don't mind, follow us and get a hold of us at commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. That's commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. Because until you get involved, until you stand up and you enter the fight and you do the piece that is allotted for you to do, there really is no coming back from this. There is no chance. There is no there's no ability for us to change the trajectory we're on. But we got to get in the cockpit, and we got to grab the wheel, and we got to turn the thing around back for a safe landing here. That's why we need your help, so we can do this. I know we can do this. I hope you're ready, because it is going to be a bumpy, wild ride, but it's going to be so worth it in the end if we hang on and we don't let go, and we make sure that we outlast the enemies of the Republic. We love you, Minnesota, but now it's your turn to get to work.
Let me